All right, that, of course, was Lindsey Graham and Chuck Grassley, and together, along with Senator John Cornyn and Senator Tillis, they are now demanding what we've been asking for on this program a long time, and that's called a special counsel. And we have these newly redacted text messages, never before seen text messages, between Strzok and Page, the lovers that they are, revealing the relationship between Strzok and this Judge Contreras, who actually sat on the FISA court, but he was also the judge in the case of Michael Flynn, and it raises, as Congressman Jim Jordan noted, these text messages provide context, but, excuse me, why did Judge Contreras recuse himself? What is going on here? How corrupt is this? How deep does this go? And we're still awaiting word either today or tomorrow at some point, and we expect that Andrew McCabe, the former deputy FBI director, is going to be fired before his pension is going to begin on Sunday. But more importantly for him, it's not the pension that he should be worried about as much as criminal charges perhaps being brought against him. Freedom Caucus member, Congressman Jim Jordan, is with us. Sarah Carter, investigative reporter, Fox News contributor. And Congressman Jordan, I'll start with you. I know you apparently are at your son's wrestling match. And I'm sure that's more important than me, but, well, not really.
Nephew's wrestling, yeah. Nephew's wrestling in the NCAA tournament, yeah.
Well, listen, I gotta ask you, first of all, without you and Jim and Mark Meadows, we don't have this information. Why is the Department of Justice making it impossible or next to impossible for you guys to get this? This is the information that led to the Nunes memo, and this is the information Rod Rosenstein desperately didn't want to come out. And I'll just add one other point. This is the same Rod Rosenstein. How is it possible he appoints Mueller and he's involved in FISA renewal with the bulk of data coming from Hillary's phony Russian dossier? Isn't that a conflict?
Yeah, there's all kinds of questions that need to be answered. Here are the three key facts, I think, Sean, from these text messages that show the relationship between Peter Strzok and Judge Contreras. First of all, Judge Contreras recused himself from the Flynn case. And he did it after, not before he had Flynn in front of him, not before it was brought. He did it after. So he recused himself from the Flynn case. Second, we have the relationship.
Well, I want you to explain this after Flynn had pled guilty.
Yes, right. After that is when, which is highly unusual. Typically, if there's a conflict, you say it on the front end, not after there's been some kind of verdict, some kind of decision. So he recuses himself after. Second, the text message is so clearly there's a relationship between Peter Strzok and Judge Contreras, so much so that they actually, Page and Strzok talked about it in their text messages. And then third, the Justice Department made it difficult for us to find out this information. So those three facts, recuse himself, there's a relationship between the judge and Peter Strzok, and third, the Justice Department made it difficult for us to figure this out. The obvious question is why.
I want to ask you this next question.
Difficult?
Yeah, okay. But the person that's making it most difficult is the same guy that appointed the special counsel, Robert Mueller. He's also the same guy that was part of the renewal process as it relates to FISA. So what I'm trying to understand here is how is it possible Rod Rosenstein can appoint Mueller and he's involved in the FISA renewal that we now know the bulk of the application is Hillary's bought and paid for Russian dossier that was put together by Christopher Steele. How is that not a conflict? And meanwhile, Jeff Sessions recused himself.
No, I mean, Sean, you couldn't say it any better. That's what frustrates me. It's what frustrates everyone. The thing I keep coming back is why make it so difficult for the United States Congress to get the information? They gave us redacted copies. In order for us to figure it out, staff had to go over to the Justice Department, view it in camera, not be able to take pictures, not be able to get copies, but only take notes. And that's how the good staff figured out this relationship existed. Why not just be upfront and tell us? What are they trying to hide? Why not give us the truth? So, yeah, I'm as frustrated as everyone. We'd like to get all the documents. Also remember this. Over 1 million documents Mr. Horowitz has been able to look at. To my knowledge, the Oversight Committee and the Judiciary Committee in the House, we've only seen about 3,100, 3,200 documents.
And they're
heavily redacted.
And how many do we know? We know there's at least 50,000 text messages between the lovebirds, right?
There's a whole slew of things we haven't seen, and if we have to keep going over there and taking notes on looking at their less redacted versions that are over there, Justice, versus the heavily redacted ones we get, that's the problem.
That is a massive problem.
Yeah, and how do we, constitutionally, the Congress is supposed to provide oversight of the executive branch.
Well, this is the House Oversight Committee, is it not?
Yeah, this is right. We're supposed to provide oversight. It's tough to do that when you won't let us see everything.
I don't even know where to begin. I really don't. Let me bring in Sarah Carter. By the way, why is there all chaos when it was pretty much a done deal that McCabe is getting fired, and then all of a sudden, well, it's going to be at 4. Oh, it's going to be at 5. Well, it's likely tomorrow. What is going on over at the Department of Justice? Why is this so complicated?
I wish I knew, Sean. I wish I knew. There was a process that the Justice Department made very clear. The Office of Professional Responsibility has a specific process that McCabe had to go through in order for them to come up with the final decision, I guess. But the Office of Professional Responsibility has asked for him to be fired. And why is this so significant? Because that's the FBI themselves. And according to a lot of sources that I've spoken with, McCabe was very close, actually, to some people in OPR. There are people there that are his friends. I think that's why it was so frustrating. Remember, going back to Robin Gritz, people like Robin Gritz, who filed complaints with OPR about McCabe over 2 years ago, now have, they were extremely frustrated, saying, OPR is never going to do anything, because it's like basically having the fox guard the hen house, right? And so nothing's going to get done. And now you see that OPR made a recommendation, which means that they discovered something that was so egregious that they had to ask for his firing. Then he goes over to the DOJ, and apparently, according to reports, he's begging to keep his pension, trying to find a way to keep his pension, because Sunday is the final day. He turns 50. That's when everything kicks in. And all we know is that he went into the DOJ. He went out through some back door where reporters weren't there, and he left. So he made kind of his plea to the DOJ. We also don't know, what is the other information? What is it that they found? What is it that they discovered beyond what we've already heard reported, which was that he misled investigators, lied to them, which, by the way, he's lying to FBI investigators. That could be criminal, and also to the IG. Was there ever a referral on him? Is there a referral on him for some type of criminal investigation? I have been told by my sources that they're looking at numerous charges. So we really do not know what is going on now. All we know is that the DOJ is heavily invested in this, and something is going to happen. And what I have been told is that he will be fired.
Unbelievable. Now,
John,
go ahead, Congressman Jordan.
John, I'm just going to add, if this doesn't underscore what Senator Grassley and Senator Graham and so many of us, and you in particular, have been calling for, why we need a second special counsel, I do not know what does. Why you have to have it. Remember,
well, why is it taking so long? Because we see everything that needs. Look, we have. I don't mean to interrupt. We know Hillary committed felonies. This is not in dispute anymore. We know the fix was in the FBI investigation. We know that she fixed the primary. We know it took a year, but we found out she paid for the dossier. We know that the phony dossier was fed to a FISA judge, and they lied to the FISA judge. How many more crimes do we need here?
Well, you know what it could be too. So I don't know. I'm speculating here, but maybe we're waiting for Attorney General Sessions and the Justice Department is waiting for Horowitz's report. It's been rumored that it's coming out next month. So we were told several months ago that was a likely date from Mr. Horowitz. So that could be what is holding up. But the truth is, with each and every day, there's someone else stepping up and calling for a special counsel, as evidenced by what Senator Graham and Senator Grassley.
Well, yesterday was a huge day. There's no doubt about it. You cannot deny that yesterday was a big day, and it's what we've been calling for. Sarah, what are the big questions you want answered as of this hour here? And, when I look at these Page-struck emails, and I realize this is only the tip of the iceberg, and then we got the Inspector General report coming. There was one former FBI guy that actually is quoted as saying that this is nothing but pure TNT when it comes out.
Yes, I did see that, and that is exactly what I have been reporting, what you have been saying, Sean, as well, and I know Congressman Jordan now for some time. According to the sources that I've spoken with, this is an extensive investigation by Horowitz. He has truly looked at every aspect of this. There will be multiple documents, multiple reports on his investigation that he will be releasing. It won't just be some kind of 4-page overview. He's going to send out multiple reports on everything. So these are some of the questions that I think need to be answered. First, I'd like to know why the DOJ redacted these text messages from Congress. And I think that Congressman Jordan and Congressman Meadows have every right to ask why this was redacted. This is not a national security issue. This wasn't part of their, secret chit-chat back and forth because they were lovers. There's no excuse to not have this information out there because Contreras was very important to this entire process, and he didn't recuse himself until after Flynn actually was there on December 1st, 2017, and turned in the guilty plea. So something happened in between those days, between December 1st and December 7th. Something significant happened. I also would like to know, out of those 1.2 million or so documents that have been discovered by the IG and he's been reviewing, where's Comey's role in all of this? Because one of the interesting things I've been hearing lately, and particularly over the last few days, is that McCabe is threatening to take everyone else down that was involved in this with him if he is fired.
Oh, I believe that and so much more. All right, Congressman Jordan, we're going to let you go. I know you're at your nephew's match. Any last word you want to add before we let you go?
No. Just remember, Comey's been fired. McCabe is retiring, and he's in trouble. He may be fired this weekend. Rybicki, former chief of staff, has left the DOJ. Jim Baker, former chief counsel, has been demoted and reassigned. Peter Strzok, former deputy head of counterintelligence, demoted, reassigned. Lisa Page,
how does he still have a job?
Reassigned.
How does Strzok-Page have a job? It's unbelievable to me.
Exactly, but those top people have all had something happen to them. That's why you can't have them investigate themselves. You've got to have a special counsel.
You can't investigate yourself. You're right. All right, great job. Keep sending your staff over there. We need this information. 800-941-SEAN. We'll continue with Sarah Carter. All right, as we roll along Sean Hannity Show, we continue with Sarah Carter. Attorneys Sidney Powell, Greg Jarrett, and Sarah's going to stay with us a little longer after the half hour. But I wanted to give you a little time here to finish up. So I read your piece today, and I don't know how you got this together in less than 3 hours. It's really well done, but these new text messages, how do you take it that Judge Contreras, now we know is a BFF of Peter Strzok, it doesn't get any more incestuous, he accepts General Flynn's plea, and then he recuses himself. Now, the new judge, as I understand it, wants all exculpatory information on Flynn's case, and he'll decide what's exculpatory.
Exactly, and I think that's important too, because just asking for all of that exculpatory evidence even after Flynn pled guilty is very significant. I think Andrew McCarthy, who's a brilliant attorney, laid that out very well in a column of his over a month ago or several months ago, and explained that quite well. I mean, that is a very significant ask by the judge, and now that we see these text messages, Sean, it reveals so much of it answers so many of our questions, right? Because we kept asking, why did he recuse himself after that? Everybody kept thinking,
never made sense, right?
Yeah, never made any sense. And now...
All right, Sarah, you can stay with us through the break, right? Can you hang on a few more minutes?
Sure.
All right, Sarah's going to be joined also by Greg Jarrett, Sidney Powell, and this new development today. We have all the latest straight ahead. The new text messages reveal that Strzok is friends with the judge that presides over the Flynn case. Flynn pleads guilty in that particular case, and then he mysteriously, just recuses himself a week after Flynn pleads guilty. Nobody understood that. Now, on the legal side of what's going on here, we welcome back to the program Sidney Powell, author of the book License to Lie, Exposing Corruption in the Department of Justice, federal appellate attorney and senior advisor for America First, Greg Jarrett, of course, our Fox News legal analyst, and Greg has been doing phenomenal work as well on this case the whole time. And we continue also with Sarah Carter, investigative reporter. She wrote this piece about these brand new text messages. What's your take? I think a mystery has been solved here in a way, right, Greg?
Yeah, I mean, it has been a mystery. Why did Contreras recuse himself a week after Flynn's guilty likely this appears to be the reason. He was close friends with a key witness in the case, which tells me he should have recused himself a whole lot sooner. And why did he hide the reason? He should have been forthcoming and honest about it. He's still not giving his reasons. And to make matters worse, as Sara learned, some of these text messages say that Contreras is one of the FISA judges. And Strzok is bragging that, he is in charge of.
By the way, this is
for the FBI.
But let's give the timeline here. This is after he takes the guilty plea of Flynn, correct?
Yeah, but the text messages are before he takes the guilty plea. So
right.
Here is quite the cozy relationship and certainly a conflict of interest.
Yeah. Well, I think there's other questions, too, here. And let me bring Sidney Powell in. Contreras was one of the FISA judges. Now, one of the questions I've had is, why don't we ever get to hear from the judges that we now know, Sidney, were lied to? And they were lied to in the sense that they were never told, even though everybody knew that the dossier was bought and paid for, they were never told that information. They omitted a very key fact in the case. And I'll ask you a question I was asking Jim Jordan in the last hour. How is it possible that Rod Rosenstein, the guy that appoints Mueller because of Sessions' recusal, is involved in the FISA renewal with the bulk of data coming from the phony dossier? How can he be playing both roles there? Why didn't he recuse himself?
Well, I'm still wondering that myself, Sean. And on top of that, it was also, one of them was signed by Dana Valente, who is now general counsel at the FBI, as I understand it. So they've just kind of, recycled people to different positions that all had their fingerprints on the phony.
Well, can you express that? I don't know if I heard you correctly. Say that again.
I think Dana Valente, who also signed one of the FISA court applications, is now general counsel at the FBI.
What?
So we need to double check.
Sara, is that true? Do you know, Sara?
I think she's right. I can't be 100% certain right now, but yes, I've heard that Dana Valente is there. She did sign one of those. Remember, Sally Yates also signed one. So did Rod Rosenstein. So there were a number of people there that were involved in those reauthorizations for Carter Page. So that's very interesting. I also heard, and this may be new news from people within the FBI, that Peter Strzok was traveling actually for the FBI just last week, and continues working. So he's not sitting in an office somewhere just waiting for something to happen. I found that very interesting as well.
But Sean, I think there's more to the recusal of Judge Contreras than just his friendship with Peter Strzok.
All right, hang on. Let me just, Dana, this person you're mentioning, how do you say the last name? Valente?
Valente, I think.
Yeah. Is the acting, you're right, is the acting head of the Justice Department's National Security Division and the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. And
he was, but now he's general counsel of the FBI.
Well, I was just to say, he's now been picked to become the new FBI general counsel. You're absolutely right.
And he's one of the people who signed one of the FISA applications along with Rod Rosenstein and Sally Yates. And so how they recycled him to the FBI is beyond my comprehension. And I think there's more to the Contreras recusal than just the Peter Strzok friendship, because he was on the FISA court, and I want to know if he's one of the ones who signed one of those phony warrant applications and approved it and let the surveillance go on Carter Page.
Well, just look at the text messages themselves, Sean. I mean, and these were back in 2016, and, Strzok says, I'm in charge of espionage for the FBI. Any espionage FISA comes before him talking about Contreras. What should he do, given his friend oversees them? And then, Page answers, standards for recusal are quite high. I just don't think this poses an actual conflict, and he doesn't know what you do. And then Strzok says, actually, he pretty much does know what I do.
Unbelievable, which shows, I would argue, Greg, that shows a conflict of interest, which makes matters worse. And when he brags that he's in charge of the espionage for the FBI.
Oh, sure. I mean, there's no wonder why people in America don't trust government. Everybody's in bed with everybody else, and they hide it, they conceal it. And the Department of Justice fought hard to keep all of this secret.
Well, let me add one point.
Primarily Rosenstein.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Rosenstein was the one begging Paul Ryan.
Which just tells you about the high level of corruption at the Department of Justice, where Rosenstein is really in charge, not Sessions, and the corruption at the FBI in the top ranks. They continue to obstruct Congress, which has constitutional oversight authority, but the FBI and DOJ continue to obstruct.
All right, let me ask you all this question. Now what happens to the Flynn case? Because the new judge in this case is demanding all exculpatory evidence, and the judge, if I remember correctly, said he will decide what's exculpatory, meaning give us everything you got. And this is the guy that worked on the Ted Stevens case.
The case,
I've had an article out for a couple of weeks.
Will be dropped.
I agree with Greg. I agree they'll be dropped. Sidney, you were saying something.
Yes, I've had an article out for a couple of weeks on the Daily Caller saying that Flynn should be allowed to withdraw his guilty plea and that Judge Sullivan could he could dismiss the whole thing for egregious prosecutorial misconduct. If the fact.
By the way, let's point out, if that happens, Andrew Weissman strikes again, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Unbelievable. Well,
this is exactly what happened in the Alaska Senator Stevens case, in which Sullivan was the presiding judge on that, when he found out that the FBI was hiding exculpatory evidence and lying. And in the end, he basically saw to it that all charges and convictions were set aside, as Sidney is proposing here. And I predict, along with you, Sean, that's what's going to happen.
I can't believe all of this is unfolding in the United States of America. Am I the only one that's shocked out of us? Am I the only person?
So I think the American public is extremely shocked, Sean. I mean, that's why we're seeing so many emails from people and, retweets of the story, and the American public is demanding answers. It's unfortunate that a lot of the media has, not talking our media, but has ignored this, and unfortunately for that, they're not serving the American public.
Well, Sean, my book, License to Lie, has been out since 2014 that details a lot of this, including the backstory on Andrew Weissman and the Ted Stevens case and the misconduct there. The Obama administration affirmatively suppressed any sort of discussion of that book, I'm convinced. And, it just rings true more every day.
Mueller thought that I guess he knew better than the FBI, Greg. And the FBI agents, Strzok interviewed, and Comey said, they both said they believed General Flynn.
They went right back to Comey and to Sally Yates, who was then serving as the Attorney General until Sessions was confirmed. And without missing a beat, even though they both knew that Flynn had been cleared by their own agents, Sally Yates goes over to the White House, meets with the White House counsel, and basically makes up a lie that Flynn is subject to blackmail by the Russian. Well, you can't be if he's telling the truth. You can't be blackmailed over the truth. And she basically tricked the White House into firing Flynn. And even though he had been found guilty of no wrongdoing, the FBI continued the case, handed it off to Mueller. Mueller thinks he knows better than everybody else, and he brought a prosecution against Flynn. And Flynn only caved in, not because he was guilty, but because he was penniless.
The poor guy, wait a minute, Greg, the poor guy, General Flynn, is selling his house to pay legal bills, for God's sakes.
And I'm sure they threatened to indict his son.
Well, that's I guarantee you that's their tactic all the time. Well, if you don't plead guilty to this, your son is under investigation too, but I think we can make that go away if you agree to this.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, they put the squeeze on him. This is the power of overzealous prosecutors in the FBI. They can destroy your life. They do it without any qualms. They do it with impunity.
Yeah, look at what they're doing to Manafort. There are now 2 different prosecutions against him for tens of counts each.
Yeah, in 2005.
In 2 different districts.
Yeah, and what did this have to do with Trump-Russia collusion? Nothing. They just got to justify their existence and expand the mandate, right?
Exactly.
Well, why don't they expand the mandate into Hillary fixing a primary and the FBI fixing, the crimes, the felonies we know she committed, and
colluding with Russia.
And colluding with Russia. There's your answer. Where's that investigation? Where is Jeff Sessions? We can't even get an answer out of these people about what's happening to McCabe today.
The very fact that it's taking this long to fire McCabe is offensive.
Yeah, I mean, if Mueller had an ounce of integrity.
It's not just offensive. It's kind of incredible because, once again, it's the FBI that is asking for him to be fired. It's not like the DOJ is going over to the FBI and saying, hey, fire this guy. It's the FBI that is asking and saying and recommending that McCabe be fired.
All right, last question, and I'll throw this at Greg and Sydney. What about Steele? And, here's an outsider, a foreigner, involved in using phony Russian contacts in the whole Trump-Russia hoax. What happens to him?
And influencing the election? Yeah.
To try to influence the election, which I thought this was all about, right? What happens with him?
Yeah. Well, he didn't show up for his deposition, so now a British judge has ordered him to show up. If he doesn't appear, he's in contempt. He gets tossed in the hoose can. I mean, I read Christopher Steele's British interrogatories in that case. He admits all of what he wrote was unverifiable, that his sources would deny the allegations, and if you read it really closely, he is confessing it was all just a fairy tale.
Oh my! You guys have all been amazing. The media in this country is an utter disgrace, and when I said journalism is dead, I had no idea how right I was back in 2007. We're going to break this wide open tonight on Hannity, 9 Eastern on the Fox News Channel. Thank you all for being with us, Sara, Greg, and Sydney. We appreciate it. We'll continue our coverage on the other side of